Let me tell you something. Rejection doesn't mean you're not enough. It just means the other person wasn't ready for your strength. You think they walked away because you were too much? No, they walked away because they didn't have the capacity to hold what you bring. And here's the twist. Avoidance hopes you'll fall apart. They want you chasing, but the real power move is the one they never see coming. Let's talk about it. Avoidance often operates from a subconscious place of fear. Fear of intimacy, fear of being controlled, and fear of emotional exposure. So when they pull away, when they reject you, they aren't necessarily making a logical decision. They're reacting from a place of emotional overwhelm. And here's where most people get stuck. They chase. They beg for clarity, for closure, for reconnection. Why? Because rejection triggers our survival instincts. We want to fix what broke. But the truth is, this instinct to chase is the very thing that keeps you stuck in their emotional cycle. And it's exactly what the avoidant expects. They pull away and subconsciously hope you'll validate their importance by chasing after them. It keeps them in control and emotionally disengaged. But what if, instead of running after someone who ran away, you turned around and walked the other direction toward yourself? That is the moment everything changes. When you stop chasing, you're not just stepping away from them, you're stepping into your own power. You're taking back the energy you were giving away and redirecting it toward your healing, your growth, your self-worth. This is the shift avoidance never anticipates. They've built their emotional habits on the assumption that others will pursue them, comfort them, convince them to stay. When you don't, it throws off their narrative. Choosing yourself is an act of emotional maturity. It says, I see you, I hear you, and I respect your decision to walk away, but I will not abandon myself in the process. That's what real strength looks like. And while the avoidant may appear unfazed at first, this unexpected reaction often triggers something deeper in them. Confusion, curiosity, even regret. Not because you manipulated them, but because you broke the pattern. And breaking the pattern is where real transformation starts. Let's be honest, this isn't easy. Walking away when every part of you wants to run after them takes courage. It takes discipline to sit in the discomfort of silence, to fight the urge to send just one more message. But that discipline is where your power lives. Because every time you choose not to chase, you're reinforcing your value. You're reminding yourself that you are not dependent on someone else's attention to feel whole, that you don't need someone to choose you in order to choose yourself. And something powerful happens when you do this. You begin to rebuild your identity, no longer shaped by someone else's rejection or validation, but grounded in your own truth. You stop asking, why didn't they want me? And start asking, why did I want someone who couldn't show up? That's when healing begins. That's when your self-respect grows louder than your self-doubt. And the more you stand in that truth, the less power their rejection has over you. It's not about punishing the avoidant. It's not about making them miss you. It's about ending the emotional loop where your worth is dependent on someone else's approval. When you stop chasing and start choosing, you become emotionally sovereign. You don't wait for closure. You become the closure. You don't wait for them to see your value. You live your value every single day by how you speak to yourself, how you show up for yourself, and how you protect your energy. In the end, avoidants don't just fear closeness, they fear people who know their own worth. And the most powerful thing you can do after rejection isn't to fight for a seat at their table. It's to build your own, full of people who never asked you to shrink just to fit. Choosing yourself after rejection isn't a weakness. It's the boldest move you'll ever make. When someone with avoidant tendencies walks away or rejects you, their instinct is usually to gain distance, not just physically, but emotionally. They expect you to fill the gap. They want space, yet subconsciously anticipate that you'll still orbit around them. That's how they maintain the illusion of control. So when you do the opposite, when you give them exactly what they said they wanted and back away fully, it shifts the entire dynamic. And that's what giving them the gift of your absence really means. It's not about playing games or punishing them. It's about honoring their decision and, more importantly, respecting yourself enough to no longer chase someone who made it clear they didn't want to stay. Avoidants thrive on emotional safety, but not the kind that comes from deep, consistent connection. For them, safety often comes from distance. When you're gone, they feel in control. But when you truly remove yourself, when you stop checking in, stop engaging, stop hoping for closure, you give them something they didn't anticipate: silence. And for an avoidant, silence from someone who used to overextend is deeply uncomfortable. It's not that they want you back necessarily. It's that they were depending on your energy to validate their sense of importance. Your presence made it easy for them to keep one foot in and one foot out. But your absence, that's a mirror. When you disappear from their emotional landscape, they are left to face the emptiness they once covered up with your attention. And in that void, questions begin to arise. Why haven't they reached out? Are they really done? Did I actually lose them? This space forces them to confront feelings they've spent a lifetime avoiding: fear of abandonment, regret, insecurity, even guilt. But those emotions can only surface when you're not there trying to fix it for them. When you remove yourself, you also remove the emotional cushion they were leaning on. And this is where the shift starts. Not just in them, but more importantly, in you. Because absence doesn't only shake them, it frees you. It gives you the mental, emotional, and spiritual room to reconnect with yourself. You stop obsessing over what they're thinking and start asking, what do I need right now? You realize how much energy you were giving away and how little you were getting in return. And with that realization comes clarity and eventually healing. Most people think that silence is passive. It's not. Silence is one of the most powerful responses you can give after rejection. Not in a cold, detached way, but in a calm, grounded, and self-honoring way. It says, I will not beg for a connection that required me to betray myself. It says, I heard you, and now I choose me. And if they ever do return, they're not coming back to the same version of you. They're coming back to someone who knows their worth and won't compromise it for temporary affection. But here's the real gift. The silence and absence you give them is not about them at all. It's about giving yourself the space to heal, to breathe, to grow, to reclaim your energy. It's about breaking the addiction to their emotional roller coaster and finding peace in your own presence. Because when you truly let someone go, not just physically, but energetically, you make room for someone new to enter. Someone who doesn't run at the first sign of closeness. Someone who sees your worth and never asks you to prove it. Giving someone the gift of your absence after rejection isn't about creating regret. It's about restoring your dignity. It's not about revenge. It's about rebirth. And in that sacred space of silence, you don't just lose them, you find you. The trap of seeking closure. One of the biggest emotional traps people fall into after being rejected by an avoidant is obsessively seeking closure. You want answers. You want to know why it happened, what went wrong, and if there was something you could have done differently. It's natural. The human brain craves resolution. But the hard truth is this. Closure isn't something they can give you, especially not someone who struggles to face their own emotions. So instead of pouring your energy into getting explanations from someone who doesn't even understand themselves fully, the most powerful thing you can do is redirect all that energy into your own comeback. Avoidants are emotionally distant for a reason. Many of them have learned to disconnect from their feelings early in life as a form of survival. They don't always know how to process deep emotional conversations, let alone give thoughtful, clear closure when a relationship ends. That's why trying to extract clarity from them often leaves you feeling even more confused and hurt. You end up replaying every word, reading between the lines, overanalyzing every interaction, and all the while they've moved on, not because they're over you, but because emotional avoidance is their coping mechanism. Meanwhile, you're stuck in a cycle of rumination. This is where your power move begins. When you decide that you no longer need their validation to move forward, you stop asking for closure and start creating your comeback. That means pouring your time, your attention, and your heart into rebuilding yourself, into discovering who you are without them, into investing in your body, your mind, and your dreams. Every day that you choose to focus on healing instead of hunting for answers is a day that brings you closer to emotional freedom. It's a day that says, I'm not waiting to be chosen, I'm choosing me. Your comeback isn't about making them jealous or proving them wrong. It's about becoming the version of yourself you were always meant to be, but couldn't become while shrinking to fit into their emotional limitations. You may have made yourself smaller, quieter, more careful around them. You might have censored your needs or tiptoed around their triggers, but not anymore. Now you get to reclaim every part of yourself that you silenced to keep the connection alive. That's not weakness, that's growth. That's the moment you start building a life so strong, so full, that their absence no longer feels like a loss. It feels like liberation. And here's the irony. Your healing journey is often what stirs something in the avoidant. Not because they're suddenly ready to love you differently, but because the shift in your energy is undeniable. You're no longer seeking. You're no longer chasing. You've stopped broadcasting heartbreak and started radiating confidence. And in many cases, this is when they circle back, curious, nostalgic, maybe even regretful. But the point isn't to wait for that moment. The point is to evolve so completely that you're no longer available for the version of them that couldn't meet your needs the first time. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you. It's in the moment you say, I don't need this chapter to make perfect sense in order to move on. It's in the gym workouts, the journaling sessions, the therapy appointments, the deep conversations with people who truly see you. It's in the mornings you wake up and realize you didn't think about them for the first time in weeks. That's real closure. That's your comeback. And it's not just personal, it's powerful. Rejection by an avoidant is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your rise. Let them go. Let the questions fade. Let the silence speak. And let your healing be the loudest thing they never expected. Rewriting the story. When an avoidant rejects you, it can feel deeply personal. Their emotional distance, silence, or abrupt disconnection may leave you questioning everything about yourself. You start to wonder if you were too much, too needy, too emotional, too vulnerable. And this is exactly the damage that needs to be undone. Because the truth is, avoidants often don't reject you. They reject the intimacy that you represent. But when you're on the receiving end of that rejection, it rarely feels that way. It feels like they're saying, you're not enough. And this is why it's so important to rewrite the story they leave behind. Avoidants tend to rewrite the narrative for you, subtly or directly. They may say things like, you're too intense. You're always wanting something more. You just don't understand me. Those statements are often masks for their own fears and limitations. But when you don't know that, you internalize those words. You start to believe you're difficult to love, or that you're the problem. That's the danger, not the rejection itself, but the meaning you attach to it. Rewriting the story isn't about ignoring what happened. It's about reframing it in a way that tells the truth. Your truth. The avoidant didn't leave because you were too emotional. They left because your emotional presence required them to feel, and feeling for them is unsafe. It challenges the emotional armor they've spent years building. So they retreat. And that retreat is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their walls. But here's what most people never do. They don't question the story left behind. They let it sit. They let it define them. And as time passes, that story starts to shape their identity. I'm too much. I always get left. People can't handle me. These aren't just thoughts, they become beliefs. And beliefs drive everything. How you show up, who you attract, and what you tolerate. That's why rewriting the story is essential. It's not just healing, it's protection. Protection from repeating the same dynamic over and over again. Start by identifying what the relationship made you believe about yourself. Write it down. Be honest. Did it make you feel unworthy, insecure, abandoned? Then ask, is that belief really true? Or was it born from someone who couldn't handle your truth? Because here's what needs to be said. Your ability to love deeply, to show up fully, to crave connection, that is not weakness. That's your strength. That's your superpower. You are not too much. You are not the problem. You simply asked for something real from someone who wasn't ready to give it. When you rewrite the story, you stop chasing closure and start choosing truth. You realize that the rejection didn't diminish you, it revealed them, and you learn to separate their behavior from your identity. You stop saying, they left me because and you start saying, they left because they couldn't meet me at the level I deserve. That one shift changes everything. It changes how you speak to yourself, how you date, how you set boundaries, and most of all, how you heal. You get to decide what story you walk away with. Will it be one of shame and self-blame, or one of clarity, empowerment, and growth? Rejection is painful, yes, but the story you tell yourself after, that's where the true power lies. Reclaim that story. Write it in your voice, and let it be the beginning of your transformation, not the end of your worth. The power of letting them wonder. There's a quiet power in letting someone wonder what happened to you. When you stop showing up, when you stop chasing, when you stop offering explanations and emotional comfort after being rejected by an avoidant, you create a kind of silence that speaks louder than words. That silence becomes the space in which they begin to notice your absence. Not just your physical absence, but your emotional and energetic absence. And here's the part most people overlook. Avoidants may walk away, but they do think about you. They just rarely show it. What they don't expect, though, is for you to stop revolving around them. When you do, they feel the shift. And in that shift, they are left to sit with the very thing they were avoiding, the loss of someone who truly cared. Letting them wonder isn't about playing games or manipulating emotions. It's about choosing not to beg, not to explain, and not to plead for connection. It's about understanding your own value so deeply that you no longer feel the need to prove it. Avoidants thrive on emotional detachment because it gives them control. But when you let them go without a dramatic exit, without a final plea, without needing to be heard, you take back control. And in doing so, you create a powerful question in their mind. Why aren't they trying anymore? That question lingers. It gnaws at them in quiet moments. It's in the silent scroll through social media when they see you smiling without them. It's in the moment they go to send a message and realize you haven't checked in. It's in the stillness they once wanted, now filled with the echo of your absence. This isn't revenge. This isn't about making them suffer. This is about healing. This is about recognizing that your silence is more powerful than their distance. That your life can grow even when someone else couldn't grow with you. But more importantly, letting them wonder gives you the space to win. Not over them, but over the part of you that once needed them to feel whole. Winning isn't about getting them back. It's about getting yourself back. It's about waking up one day and realizing you no longer need their attention to feel seen. That your happiness doesn't revolve around their return. You start pouring into your own life, into friendships, into purpose, into health, into the parts of you that were neglected while you were trying to keep someone emotionally unavailable close. And here's the unexpected truth. Your growth will be seen. Maybe not immediately, maybe not openly. But avoidants, despite their disconnection, are not immune to noticing change. They remember your pattern. When you no longer reach out like you used to, it disrupts their expectation. When you stop feeding their need for validation, they notice the hunger. And it's not because they suddenly understand what they lost. It's because your silence breaks the emotional rhythm they were relying on. Letting them wonder is your way of choosing dignity over desperation. It's how you reclaim the parts of yourself that were dimmed to keep the connection alive. You're not disappearing to punish. You're disappearing to protect your peace. You're letting them sit with the void they created while you fill yours with new life, new dreams, new strength. And the best part, while they wonder, you win. You win because you didn't lose yourself trying to hold on to someone who was never fully present. You win because you stopped asking why you weren't enough and started building a life where you are enough, without question. Let them wonder. Let them sit in the silence. And let your healing do the talking. If they walked away, let them. You don't need to chase love to prove your worth. This is your moment to rise. Not for them, but for you. Take back your power. Rebuild your peace. And let your silence speak the truth they were never ready to hear. Your comeback starts now.